Okay.
Okay, what type of nurse are you?
I would describe myself as an international community health nurse. I did my nursing education here in the U.S. And but I lived in Brazil, so I came to the U.S. to do my nursing, and then I went back to Brazil. And my first job was running a community health development project on the Amazon, and I worked in community health, and then I taught women's health and pediatric nursing at a university in Brazil, and then I later came to the U.S. to get my PhD, and my area of expertise is immigrant women's health and community health.
What were the hours like that you worked?
Well, when you work in community, you work all the time. In other words, I would go out on boats to villages, and sometimes it would take us 24 hours on the boat to get out to a village. We also had a clinic that I was there usually from probably 8 to 5, but we also had visiting surgical teams that would come down from the U.S. So when we had surgeries, we would work, straight through. We'd do shifts, night shifts. So it was variable. Okay, I sort of ran my own schedule, but worked a lot.
Did you have like a main age of patients that you saw, or did it vary?
No. Our community health projects were focused mainly on child health. So I would see mostly children. We ran immunization projects, mostly for children. We were working with malnourished children. So mostly it was pediatrics. But of course, when we had the surgeries, we sometimes had older adults, because we did orthopedic surgeries too, dependent on the team. So at that point in time, I considered, I worked with pediatrics, but I soon realized that everything we were trying to do depended on women. It depended on their mothers.
Mm-hmm.
So I really changed my focus then more to women's health.
Okay. What was your favorite part of your job?
Probably going out to the villages and being in the villages with people and working with. I had some really great nurses' aides, and I liked being out in the community.
Did you have a least favorite part?
I don't know. I've probably forgotten it. It's been a while, right? Yeah.
Was there a certain type of sickness or disease that you saw the most?
Well, this was in the 1980s. As I said, we were one of the main foci of our project was childhood immunization. We still had. I saw children die of measles. We had cases still of polio, pertussis, whooping cough. So those, and then chronic malnutrition, third-degree malnutrition, and diarrheal diseases. So those were the conditions that we were focusing on primarily.
What was the most interesting thing that you saw?
Most interesting thing? Oh gosh. Oh, probably the piranhas behind the boats or something. Yeah. Well, one of the interesting, we worked with community health workers, and they were out in these villages, and then they would send patients in. Probably, one thing that I remember was a community health worker who'd identified a woman who, had a really distended Valley. Actually, there are two cases of this. One was urinary retention, and she had a huge belly. Another one was a woman that we actually operated on, and she had a tumor which is like the size of a basketball. So we saw things like that. Yeah, we saw a lot of cases of cleft palates and things that you probably don't see as much here.
Did you have a set uniform that you had to wear?
No, but I always wore white, just white cotton. And I rode a bicycle through town to get to work, and probably everybody thought it was strange, this blonde white woman in white riding a bicycle through town to get to work. In Brazil, we didn't have a uniform, but nurses always wore white. When I worked at the hospital in Sao Paulo, we just wore white, anything, yeah. It wasn't a set uniform.
And then I know you said that you saw like different things in Brazil, like sickness-wise and stuff, but were there any other differences or similarities between there and the U.S.?
Well, the public health system in Brazil is very different from the U.S. public health system. In other words, they have a public health system and we don't have a public health system. So that's very different. They have a very organized system of public health clinics that everyone can go to. Nurses are very active in the community doing community health work. So I think that's a big difference.
Okay, and then why did you decide to come to the U.S.?
I actually decided, I was teaching nursing at a university in Brazil, and I needed to have a doctorate because I had a master's degree, but I didn't have a doctorate. And so my husband retired, and I said, okay, we'll go. I'll work on my doctorate in the U.S. There were 2 programs in Brazil that had doctorates then, and I could have gone to school for free, but I would have taken the spot of a Brazilian nurse who was trying to get a doctorate. So we came to the U.S. and we've been here ever since.
Okay. Well, that was all.
Is that it? Okay.
Yeah.